Hi and welcome to today's video by Study Unifees. In today's video, we will address a very big concern among current and future international students. Will the Trump government change the post-study work rules for international students in the USA? Trump's second term has reignited concerns among international students, particularly those from countries like India, China and elsewhere, about potential changes to optional practical training or OPT and H1B work visas. These post-study work programs are important pathways for students aiming to study and then work in the USA, especially in fields like tech, medicine and engineering. Given Trump's tough immigration stance and his administration's early moves, here's an analysis of possible changes and the obstacles he might face. First, let's talk about OPT or Optional Practical Training. OPT is a program that allows international students on F1 visas in the United States to work in their field of study for up to 12 months after completing their degrees, with an additional 24-month extension available to STEM graduates. Question number 1 is whether OPT durations will be shortened. OPT now totals 36 months for STEM graduates. Trump could push to reduce this by slashing OPT, for example, to 6 months or limiting the STEM extension, aligning with his America First rhetoric to prioritize US workers. Trump has already tried this in 2018 but faced legal challenges and internal resistance, leaving OPT largely unchanged by the end of his term in 2021. If Trump tries to shorten OPT duration or its STEM extension, he'll face legal challenges again from courts and resistance from university and tech firms lobbying against talent loss. Importantly, Trump does not necessarily have to get minor changes passed by Congress. Trump can modify OPT duration or rules through executive action via the DHS or Department of Homeland Security, as OPT's framework stems from regulatory authority under the Immigration and Nationality Act, not a specific statute requiring congressional approval. However, major changes like eliminating OPT entirely or drastically redefining its scope could push beyond regulatory bounds, inviting legal challenges or necessitating congressional backing. This would be tough because Trump's majority in both houses is very small, and the USA has a history of party lines being crossed when important legislation is on the floor. The second question is whether now there will be stricter eligibility criteria for OPT. It's quite possible he may introduce stricter criteria like higher wage caps and specific fields for eligibility to OPT. Higher wage caps for OPT would make it harder for recent international graduates to qualify, as entry-level positions often pay below such thresholds, shrinking their post-study work options and pushing them towards earlier exits from the US. OPT eligibility to specific industries like science or technology could exclude non-STEM students like those in business, arts or humanities who rely on OPT to transition to H1B visas. However, making the OPT eligibility criteria stricter for OPT is easier said than done. Courts could strike down changes if they're deemed arbitrary or exceeding DHS authority under the Immigration and Nationality Act. This is exactly what happened with the H1B wage rule, which was overturned in 2020 for procedural flaws. American universities, which are reliant on the $40 billion they get from international students, will sue or probably lobby hard, arguing economic and academic harm, as they did in 2020 against the online-only deportation rule when Trump tried to deport students whose classes had been shifted solely online due to COVID-19. Lastly, companies like Google and Microsoft, where 50% of engineers are foreign-born, will push back, citing talent shortages. Now let's talk about potential changes to the H1B work visa. The H1B visa is a temporary work visa that allows US employers to hire foreign professionals for up to 6 years, and these places are won through a lottery system. The next step after OPT, usually for most international students working in the US, is to apply for the H1B visa. Many students transition from OPT to an H1B visa as their employer sponsors the student and files a petition for the annual lottery, which has a maximum of 85,000 visas. Trump may try to reduce the annual cap. The current H1B cap is 85,000, with 65,000 regular places and 20,000 places for advanced degree holders. Trump might try to lower this, for example, to 40,000, as speculated in posts on X, formerly Twitter, and hinted at in Project 2025, a conservative policy blueprint he's loosely tied to. To lower the H1B cap, Trump will have to get this passed by Congress because the 85,000 cap is set by statute, that is, the Immigration Act of 1990, and this requires congressional approval to change, which is unlikely with a divided Congress. Next, there's certain to be industrial opposition to this. Giants like Google, with 1,323 H1B visas in financial year 2024, and Microsoft, with 4,725 H1B visa beneficiaries approved in 2024, will lobby fiercely, citing a talent crisis. Also remember, 50% of Silicon Valley engineers are foreign-born. Lastly, advocacy groups and businesses could sue if Trump bypasses Congress with executive tricks like stricter adjudication, arguing overreach as seen in the first-term H1B setbacks. Next, Trump may also try to introduce merit-based allocation in the H1B work visa, shifting from a lottery to a system favoring higher salaries and experience. This could disadvantage fresh graduates, including international students transitioning from OPT who often lack extensive work history. If Trump tries to introduce a merit-based allocation for H1B visas, he'll face legal hurdles too. Courts could block such a move as exceeding Department of Homeland Security authority under the INA, as they did with the 2020 wage-based H1B rule, citing APA violations or lack of congressional mandate. Also, such a move would face industrial opposition from big companies who will argue that this move disadvantages entry-level hires, vital for innovation, over high-wage veterans. So, for now, our conclusion is that Trump will probably attempt to bring about changes to the OPT program and the H1B work visa, but will probably not succeed because of the significant challenges he faces on all fronts. So, for now, if you're planning to study in the USA or already studying there, your OPT and pathway to the H1B work visa seem to be safe. Thanks for watching today's video. For more insightful videos like this, like, share and subscribe. For any advice on studying in the USA or elsewhere, log on to www.studyunifees.io for a free counseling session with me.